Welcome to the 5th JustRPG.com podcast. I'm James, and today I'm joined by...
Vicky.
Oh. And I'm Maxwell.
Welcome, guys. So today we're going to start out with some discussions, and then we're going to talk about the game of the week. And this week it was Suikoden 3 for the PlayStation 2. If you'd like to follow along with the podcast and you're listening on YouTube, you can go to the video description below. If you're listening on somewhere else, you can go to JustRPG.com, hit the tab that says podcast, and then there'll be a post labeled Podcast 5, and there'll be an outline there that you can follow along with this podcast. If you haven't been to our site before, make sure to check it out. We have hundreds of RPGs. We do news articles a few times a week. You can also follow us on Twitter at JustRPG to keep up to date with us and some of our game pickups as well. Alright, so let's get started. First discussion will be, if you could erase your memory, what RPG would you play again for the first time? So what RPG would you want to experience again as if you had never played it?
Who's going first?
Yeah, you can go first. You just volunteered.
Oh, alright, well, if I could erase my memory, I think I would play Dragon Age Inquisition all over again.
And why is that?
The beginning of the game is so slow. There's this one area you have to go to in order to, get through the story, and it's the hinterlands. The hinterlands are hell on earth. It is the largest area in that entire freaking game, and they put you there first. And it takes a good 3 to 4 hours just to finish the main story of the quest, and I hate it. And it makes me not want to play it.
So then why would you want to do it again?
Because if I don't remember it, then I can play it.
Oh, I see. You like this game, wasn't this on your most memorable gaming moments as well?
It sure was.
Yep.
Well,
a scene from this game. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of my most favorite games of all time, except for the beginning. They have some ridiculous quests that I just never want to ever do.
So might as well erase your memory, do it again, right?
I might as well.
That's the only way you can get yourself to play it again?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I can force myself through it if I want to make a new character, but most of the time I just can't. I have maybe 3 or 4 characters, and it's so difficult to pick up the game because I'm stuck in that beginning part. Don't want to do it.
See, I find that kind of unusual because games like World of Warcraft, they make the beginning kind of really good so that you kind of want to make a new character, and you level quick in the beginning and you're like, yeah, this is fun, and then it kind of slows down later. But it's kind of weird. That's the opposite. You still want to do it again. You must really like that game.
I really do. I love suffering through it.
I wonder how many people would play Ocarina of Time if the Water Temple was the first temple.
Nobody.
See, I was going to actually say Ocarina of Time for this. But yeah, if the Water Temple was there instead of the Great Deku Tree, forget about it. I would never replay that game.
I don't think I would either.
Honestly, I stop my playthrough when I hit that. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I either got to look up a guide or I just got to kind of muddle through, and I don't want to do it, you know?
It's, to be fair, I think when you redo it, it's really not that hard. But we all did it when we were so young.
Yeah.
I took a break for a year when I got to the Water Temple.
I tried to rent a game and give them my copy, hoping that they'd beat the Water Temple on their save.
That's fun.
Nice.
It didn't work. It never worked.
I mean, that is one of the most infamous dungeons in any games, too. So yeah, if that was in the beginning, I don't think that game would be on top games list.
I don't think it would. So that's your game, huh? Ocarina of Time?
Well, it'd definitely be one of them. Really, that's the one that kind of first really got me into the genre. So being able to play that again for the first time, that would be awesome. You know, now I'm like, oh my god, the water temple's next. Ugh, I'm going to have to muddle through it again. But when I was playing for the first time, I was like, oh, this is bad. But I know there's more good stuff after this, you know?
Yeah. Like when you fight your Shadow Link, that was always like, you know you're going forward. You're like, alright, sweet, something new.
I mean, that was really one of, I think, the best fights in the game, too. So I think it was very good or smart that they put it in that temple. Like, the worst temple had one of the best fights.
You thought that was one of the best fights?
I think it was.
Whether or not, like, tactically it really was, the concept was super cool.
Oh.
I agree. I like that one, and I also like the one, there's a guardian, and I think it's the desert temple that you fight. It's got, like, a really big hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like, Spear Temple?
Yeah.
Or
right
Shadow
before
Temple? One of those two.
The one you fight right before the two witches.
Oh.
There's a guy in a mirror that gets up and you battle him.
Yeah.
I thought that was
That was much cooler than Dark Link.
Dark Link was fun.
I think Dark Link was... The reason why I liked it so much is because some other kid in class, I was, pretty young, was like, yo, did you know that at one point you get to fight an evil version of yourself? I was like, oh my god, no way. And I was kind of looking forward to it for the rest of the game, when it finally happened, I'm like, oh my god, this is it. That definitely kind of... Yeah, that hype definitely changed things.
I wonder what the first game was that, like, did that. Because I know that was in, like, Mega Man 2. You, like, fought the clone of yourself at some points.
Yeah, it's a good question. I have to look that up.
It's always, like, the boss before the final boss is how it seems to.
Yeah. I know there's some other games, like, they don't come to mind, though, but there's, like, an evil version of you.
Raid or something like that.
Great game, by the way.
It was, yeah. Yo, shout out to Genesis. Yo, for me, I think my game would probably be Skyrim.
Really?
Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Yeah, just getting like a clean slate refresh on that game. Like, just for me, like, I was just looking forward to like going to like villages with like fruit and plants and stuff and like making everything. Like the crafting at the beginning of the game. I wish they made the food you cook a little better, like more relevant. That kind of like turned me off, because then I'd maybe like collect these things in baskets, and instead of just looking for ingredients for potions, I'd pick up the fruit, and produce. But I think that was probably the game I would get a clean slate on, just because it was so exciting. Like your first temple, the first giant dragon, the first castle, like going underwater, all those things. Like the first times for each of those were always really cool for me.
I mean, I'm not a fan of those games, but I can definitely understand why you would choose that, because it's that open world, and like after you play through it once, you kind of like start min-maxing. You start like, oh, I know that one wasn't fun. It kind of loses that like unlimited open world feeling once you beat it, or you know all the stuff.
All the enemies are the same. Yeah, it's repetitive. It's like the same issue that No Man's Sky had. Like the second planet are really cool, but then you're like, oh, it's all the same thing, and then it loses the ability to surprise you. And I think the more a game can surprise you, the better the game is. And if you lose that in those adventure like RPGs, it's no bueno.
Well, another one of mine, since we mentioned it, would probably be World of Warcraft. But it would be under the condition that all my friends were also in the same boat, because otherwise it wouldn't be fun. But I played a vanilla server. I played in Australis, which some people might have heard of. It was like the biggest vanilla server. It went down recently. But they redid the server. Everything was original, and I had a blast while playing it. And I was kind of rediscovering things. It's been so long. But if I could truly go back to like never play WoW and then play it for the first time, I wasn't able to control myself. I was up until 6 a.m. on the computer. I was in 8th grade, and my parents were catching me on the computer. I was getting in trouble, those were the days. Those were the days when like WoW was everything.
That was me for StarCraft and Brood War.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone has like that MMO that really got them in. Usually it's your first, but sometimes like WoW had the power like to even though it wasn't my first, to kind of also do that. But yeah, it would have to be under the condition that all my friends also, could be in the same boat,
So now I get to have another one?
Yeah, you get permission.
Alright, I get to. Alright, I think the first Halo, because I'd never played a game like that before in my life.
So you guys always pick games that I really hate.
I hate Halo too. I'm so confused.
It's not really an RPG either, but
I guess not. I mean, kind of.
I guess the
You're role-playing as Master Chief,
I mean,
technically.
every game, like FIFA, I'm role playing as Messi or something. I guess technically.
Should I pick another one?
Yes. We reject Halo. Pick another one.
FIFA's the best RPG, man. Roleplay is best.
Give me a second. I gotta. Wait, no, Lost Odyssey. Wait, no. I picked something about that before.
Counter-Strike.
And everybody listening, just closed.
Oh man. All right. Well, why don't we come back to you, Vicky? I'll give you some time to think about it. Maxwell, do you have another one?
Come back to me.
Another one? Role-playing game I could re-experience for the first time. I'd have to say some with a lot of side quests, I think. That all like the secrets. Maybe that's a really good one. I think, alright, maybe you can make fun of me for this. Maybe like the very, very, very first Pokemon game I ever played.
No, I think we both love Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. There's a lot to explore in that game.
Look at me. I get to pick a cool game.
I don't know any of the Pokemon after the original 151. I don't know any of the other ones.
Alright, I know all of the ones, but... I can see that.
That was pretty cool, because like you get, every time you see like a new creature, you're like, oh, this is sweet, you know?
Yeah, and you're like, oh man, I wonder what moves it's gonna learn next, or I wonder...
Yeah.
I think back then, too, there were no online resources really available. You know, like there were some, but not many.
Very few, yeah. And there's like rumors. It's like, yo, you can catch Mew if you walk around your house 100 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd say all the stuff. Go by the river and fill up every inbox with a Magikarp.
God knows I tried all of them, so...
I tried a few. I tried a few. But that was before like the term trolling was even like a real thing. That was more just like a prank. Because I think that's like where the word originated from. Just silly things like that on the internet.
I don't know. Trolling is like kind of recent. I mean, within the last 10 years at least.
I think the term kind of became more, in more recent times, but I think it always existed. Like we were playing, I mean, technically, if we're playing StarCraft and I'm allied with you and I attack your base, now you would say, "Oh, stop trolling me," but back then I was just being a dick, like it. Yeah. There wasn't a word for it.
Yeah, or if you're like covering games you'd want to replay and then you say Halo 1, that'd be like a troll.
I mean, when my buddy was playing Heavy Rain for the first time and I copy and pasted the ending to him, I was just being a dick. But today I would be a troll. Yeah, I did that.
You did that?
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
You're the worst.
We can't be friends.
He didn't talk to me for like a year and a half.
Dessert. Dude, that's the worst, man. You can't spoil games like that.
Well, my point being, back then I was just a dick. Now I would have been a troll.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, that would actually be my game then, that I could... I wouldn't know any of the endings.
Heavy Rain, that's a good choice. I'm not mad at that.
Thanks. I'm glad that you approve.
Yeah. I approve of that. Or Life is Strange.
I mean, I could play that over and over 1,000 times, and
The first playthrough's fun. I guess anything that just like surprises. I think the games you'd want to replay are the ones that just always caught you with like new things and surprises.
yeah.
Then again, maybe that's like the most important part of a role-playing game is the ability to like surprise you with something.
Like, I didn't even know that could happen. Oh my goodness. They're taking it
instead of,
further
like,
than I thought they would.
The worst is when they use like sprites and just make them bigger and change the color. They do that in Tales of, and I'm not gonna hate on Tales of because I love Tales of games.
I mean, they do it in a lot of games.
I know. I'm just like, come on. How many like different species of giant mushrooms do I need to kill?
All right. Well, I think we more or less exhausted that question.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it could be endless.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
All right, this one could be kind of multi-part, but what makes grinding good in RPGs? Or do you like grinding? Or what? And then we can move into what games had the best grind, if you did like it. So I think this is kind of like a mechanical. Like, I'd say most people do enjoy grinding. There are some people who don't, but some games manage to make it satisfying and feel good. So like, what is that? Like, what are they doing there that's making that happen?
I think the important thing to make grinding enjoyable is that it's not repetitive. And all right, now let me finish this up because I know that sounds kind of like going against what I'm saying, but if you're just mashing an A button to grind just to like get through it, I don't think that's very fun. But if you're also like practicing the mechanics of a certain combo, like even though you're like defeating enemies, you're like practicing how to do a combo or how to block at a certain time or avoid a move in like real-time combat, or like you're trying different, if it's like a turn-based game, you're trying like, oh, I'm gonna have character A like heal while we do magic, and trying to find the most efficient way to do stuff. If you can learn and get better at the game while you're grinding, I think that's what makes it enjoyable. But if it's literally just time consuming and button mashing, I think that's what makes it a turn off.
See, I'm gonna have to disagree, because for me, when I'm grinding, so let's say even if it's just a regular turn-based RPG, like Final Fantasy or something, one of the early ones, I'm satisfied when I get to the point where I can just spam A and just kind of get through. I'm like, wow, I improved. Now this is easier. I also enjoyed like games like Final Fantasy X2, believe it or not. I actually kind of enjoyed that game, but you could basically make everyone a white mage, and if you just held X, it would just do prayer, which was a free mana heal, and you could basically max out all your character's white mage class by doing that, and for some reason that was satisfying. Also, I played Ultima, which had a macro system built into it after a couple of years, and I would basically, like, I'd go to school and I'd come back, and I would have grinded the whole time I was at school, and for some reason that was satisfying. Like, yeah, I did something, I was productive. Now my character's stronger. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It's the feel of productivity, you know? You got stuff done. I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I also agree with what you're saying, though, that if you're getting better, that's also good. Maybe it's even more satisfying.
Yeah, and like Diablo 2, I think, had really good grinding.
Yeah. Yeah, Diablo 2, like, you had to... Like, you could suck at Diablo 2 bail runs, you know? You could be bad at them. You know?
Yeah.
I know, I was.
And you can learn, too. You can, like, try different paths on the maps and learn, oh, like, these abilities do lightning or fire or whatever. I need to equip this and equip a different set of skills while you're still grinding.
Yeah, I think that still works. What about you, Vicky? What do you think of grinding?
Well, I like it depending on how the battles, like, and the encounters, like the length of them. If it takes too long, then I hate grinding. But if it's like a very quick encounter, like the loading time is great, and like you're in and out of the battle, like you're out who does what to get you quickly in and out of that battle, then that's my favorite type of grinding. So it could either be button mashing for me, or like I have to think a little. But as long as it's quick.
Okay, so you like it quick. Do you
Yes.
Do you guys overgrind if you find the opportunity to? Like you said, something you try to do?
And it's not always an accident when I do it. Like, I remember I was playing Fire Emblem Awakening, and
yeah, that game's very grind heavy.
Yeah. I was in this one area for like 3 hours, and I'm like, oh shit, I've been grinding for like such a long time, and I was like powered. But I mean, for the most part, I don't really try to. It's an accident when it becomes like a monotonous kind of thing.
See, some games kind of require it too, like Dragon Quest VIII, for example. If you don't grind, you're screwed. You really can't progress. Like, they expect you to take a couple hours out, sit there and grind. And that's kind of part of it.
A lot of tactic games too.
Like Disgaea, for example. Like,
Yeah.
they expect you to grind.
That's the perfect example of a grinding game.
See, a game like a tactics game that doesn't do that would be the older Fire Emblems. The newer Fire Emblems kind of enabled grinding. Like, you can replay missions, but the original Sacred Stone, stuff like that, they don't let you. Like, you play the mission once and that's it. You can't replay the missions. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's definitely good and it's satisfying in Disgaea. Like, becoming level 999, you know? Like,
Yeah,
you look forward to that.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that, Max?
I was saying I really like the item dungeons too.
Yeah. Yeah, they had those in, like, Phantom Brave and some of the other NIS tactics games.
I always thought that was a really interesting concept. It's like an optional grind. But I think it's required in that game for sure. Because there's like the random power spikes with enemies and you're like, oh, man, I need better gear.
The way I play Disgaea games is I do a mission, then I replay that mission 5 times, then I do mission 2, I replay it 5 times, then I do mission 3, and then somewhere along the line I find a mission that is like just better than any other mission. It has like some kind of exploit, it feels like, in it. And you can just kind of like keep going on that one. But
Yeah, more chests and stuff.
But like I that's really all I do in the game is grind. I'm not listening to the story. I'm just skipping everything. I'm just like, I can't wait for the grind.
That
Oh my
hurts.
God.
I love the story, man. That's why I play RPGs. I love the stories.
Yeah, actually, on the most recent one I played, I think it was 3 on Vita. I've been actually listening to the story, and it's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's cutesy. There's all the printies and stuff like that. I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
But if
that's
I'm
how it is,
seriously
yeah.
into it, I don't.
This guy is not. No one's playing this guy for the story, but I still.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, I think they know, too. It's like tongue-in-cheek. Like, they know what's up. They know that it's not supposed to be crazy. They're like, these people just like tactics, you know?
So, what games do you think had the best grinding?
Well, I would put like games like Disgaea up there. I think like they're designed for it and they do it well. It's repetitive, but like for some reason you don't mind.
Yeah, I agree. You can choose. Plus, you have a ton of party members and stuff. You can make new ones, recruit people, capture them hostage.
You know what it is? Grinding. I think games that have grinding that basically gives you more than just experience or money. Like with Disgaea, you're getting money, you're getting experience, you're getting mana to make new characters and like all this other stuff. There's a lot going on when you kill a monster.
That's true.
I think
never thought
that
about
makes it better. I know you guys didn't play it, but Xenoblade Chronicles X for Wii U, like there's a lot going on. Like you're leveling up your character's skills, you're leveling up your physical stats, you're leveling up your scale, you're leveling up the shops that you can do. Like there's a lot going on all at the same time. Like, and all you're doing is killing one monster, and all this other stuff's happening. I think that's very satisfying.
And that makes sense. I think because I was gonna add in. I think the best grinding is usually when it's like optional, like there's like side quests and all the optional things. But when you word it like that, that's true. When there's more, you benefit from just like more currency and more experience. You're not just getting stronger. You're getting all these like extra things you can do in the game. I think you're probably right. What about you?
But you, Vicky, yeah.
I don't know. Dragon Quest probably. Like
I mean, they definitely encourage. It's definitely required.
yeah. That's why it's okay. If it's not required, it's kind of like optional, but you still kind of have to. Like it's forced upon you eventually. Like, oh, you should have been grinding for a little while, and then you could have beaten this boss, but since you didn't, what's it called?
They might do that to prevent speedruns.
It's
But
possible.
what about like Kingdom Hearts?
I think at this point it's tradition with Dragon Quest, though. This was the original grind RPG.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even think to grind in Kingdom Hearts at all.
Really, I grinded in Kingdom Hearts for specific purposes. I was like, okay, I want to beat Sephiroth, and I'm not strong enough, so I'm going to go grind. Otherwise, I didn't really have to.
I just never knew. My thing in Kingdom Hearts is I never knew where to grind. I know
Yeah,
you-
that's a good point. You just kind of have to go to like your most recent world, and you know, which means that they probably didn't want you to. They probably are like, okay, when you're towards the end, now go fight Sephiroth, you know.
Yeah.
But I always
Like,
tried
we
to
just
do it
had-
earlier.
Yeah, everyone did. Yeah, it's so cool. You get to fight Sephiroth. What? And then you get.
Yeah.
Like,
And
why
he-
is he two-shotting me?
And he looks so much cooler than he does compared to in Final Fantasy VII because the game came out so many years apart. You're like, oh my god, he doesn't look like crap. Have
Like
you
updating
guys
graphics?
have you guys played Bravely Default?
Yes.
Yeah, I have.
I think this game is fantastic. While I think the graphics need work, it is 3DS, so it is limited. 3DS is not known for its good resolution, so they basically let you customize all these things. They kind of have everything we've been talking about. They make everything optional. You can basically set the difficulty at will. You can change the speed of battle. The combat's interesting. And then you also get experience, you get money, and you get job levels. You could change classes at will and get new, job levels from it. I grinded for hours in that game. Not too like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I just sat down. I played while I was watching something on YouTube. I was just grinding. I didn't get sick of it. I thought it's really well done. But did you like the game? Did you guys,
Yeah. The second one came out, and I never picked it up, but
I've been meaning to. I haven't picked it up. I haven't finished this one yet, actually. So, putting it
I
off.
like the first one.
I enjoyed Bravely Default.
I really like the class system. I think that's what
Yes.
did it. It's because you get these job points on top of your base level, and that kind of gives you something else to do, and it makes the grind more enjoyable.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics did that.
Yeah,
A little
And the-
different.
yeah, but it's the same kind of concept. I think that definitely helps. Some other Final Fantasy, I forget which number did it. Like you can switch jobs and stuff like that. And you get job points.
Yeah, I think there's a game.
Ring
you
of
might-
Fates?
No, I'm thinking of an older one.
Oh, okay.
What do you say, Max?
I was thinking that Rune Factory Tides of Destiny had a really unique grinding in it because your levels for your skills would go up. Like, let's say, depending on what type of weapon you're using, the more you use it, the more abilities you learn for that weapon. The more you jump, the better your jumps got. The more you would like defend and dodge, the higher those skills would go up. They become faster and longer, those kind of things. There'd be certain areas of like maps and stuff that you can't get to unless your jump's high enough. And I always think that's cool when you're grinding because you can like change how you grind, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did that in Fantasy Life, was a 3DS game. It didn't do too well, and it was lackluster in many regards, but they had a similar system. It was kind of like Rune Factory without the farming. It was just like straight combat.
What's the point?
Well, they had way more things to do. Like you could cook and you could do all these other things, and they were all like you could never switch classes and just play as that the whole time. But I liked the game, and then Monster Hunter came out, and that was it. But
Okay.
I always wanted to kind of go back to that, but I haven't. But that had a similar system. Like what you do determines what skill goes up. I think it's a good way to do it.
That is pretty good. I think that was one of the issues Tides of Destiny had, is that like they tried to do way too much in one game. It was fun, because there's a ton of things you could do, but none of them, if you don't put the effort into, if it just kind of feels, I don't want to say like unfinished, but like if you kind of like, how do I explain it? Like instead of having like something on like a 10 out of 1 to 10, like everything was like slightly above average. It was like, okay. You don't get excited to do any of the things, but it's kind of cool that there's all these different things you can do. Whereas in like Skyrim, you get excited. You can be like, oh, I can be stealthy, and like it's really well done. You can be like a mage, a fighter, stealthy. They're not really like trying to get you to be a cook as well. You can do it on the side, but they don't put a lot of effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you want to do. You don't want to try to do too much in a game; it just gets sloppy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go on a tangent here, but they've made let's say like 10, at least 10 different Harvest Moon games, right? Not one of them has been like truly a good game. Like they've all been okay, but they'll put something in one game, people love it. They're like, yeah, this one part of the game's good, the rest of it sucks. And then they'll make the next one, and they won't include that. And then they'll try something else, and they're like, oh, this one thing's good, but you screwed up everything else again. And they just can't get it. I don't understand what's wrong with the team. They really can't get it. It's still Natsume, right? They've tried it so many times. How have you not been able to perfect that formula? And I think Rune Factory is, it's also kind of a Harvest Moon game. It's like the same thing. They've done the same game. And they keep like making something good, but then the rest of the game sucks, and they just can't for some reason pick the right formula. I don't know how many tries are they gonna get, and then a game like Stardew Valley comes around that's basically Harvest Moon, but just better. Like, how is this indie developer able to do it when you guys tried 10 times and weren't able to? I really don't get that.
Yeah, I think I disagree to a point though. I think the Nintendo 64 Harvest Moon was perfect.
It's very hard to play. It's very slow when you play today. It's like, I picked the thing up, I put it in the bag, it took 2 minutes, now let's pick another one up. It's kind of like, it's super slow, but I agree that's definitely one of the best.
Yeah, for its time, I think it was really good, because it's at the time. But I get what you're saying, though, because there's, like, so many things, like, they're really good in, like, one, and then they, like, take it out. And you're like, what is this? Like, why'd you do this?
I mean, they have a following. How are you guys not able to handle this simple concept, Like, what's wrong with you? But whatever.
That's like, I mean, I think you learn after everything. Like, a lot of people didn't like Final Fantasy 13 because it was too linear.
Blech.
Well, I'd say that team knows what they're doing. They're like, okay, we tried this. People didn't like it. We're not going to do that again. We're going to take what they liked from it and then make a different game. They're not going to
make it better.
Then again, like, they make Harvest Moon for 10 years and then they put out Tale of Two Cities for 3DS and it's just garbage. It's unplayable. It's like they took everything that people didn't like and put it all in one game. I don't understand, Like, come on.
Yeah,
come on, Natsume.
Pretty terrible.
And I was like, I'm like, yeah, Harvest Moon. This can't be horrible. It was hard.
I get to have new outfits and all this other shit that I actually.
That's pretty bad.
All right, would you guys like to add anything else? We definitely got a little sidetracked there, but for grinding and RPG, anything else you guys like to add? Or like to move on to the next question?
No, I think we've covered it for the most part.
I'm good.
Okay, this is somewhat related to a lot of other things we've been talking about, but for the next one, what do you think are some of the biggest turn-offs that makes you stop playing RPGs? Like, you've been playing it, you're kind of into it, and then something turns you off.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Really,
spotlight.
Really
Where's that spotlight?
Garbage side quests. Just like really dumb things. Like, hey,
you mean
bring this?
mandatory ones?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. But they're like awful. Like, hey, I need you to walk like 20 feet to this guy and bring him something. And then you're going to have to bring something from him somewhere else.
I like those. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, I just got free experience. I cheesed them, I like that, but
I don't like it. Like, fetch
Like
quests.
in, I was playing Star Wars Galaxies for a little while. And there's like delivery quests. And you have to do that. You have to cross like the entire continent of like Naboo or whatever to bring someone their stupid fish. And I hate it. I could be doing better things with my time. I don't know.
yeah, when they're required and they're tedious and not fun, especially in MMOs and stuff like that, I can see getting turned off and just kind of like start jumping around the main city and then you kind of just stop logging on and then that's it.
Yep. That's why I stopped playing and I feel like horrible. I was in like a really cool guild recently. I loved everyone in that game and I just hated questing. It was just so freaking terrible.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yes, bad quests and bad side quests.
I think for me, it's kind of a mix of two things. One, a lot of games have difficulty settings and I enjoy that, but if a game's kind of too easy, if the puzzles are too easy, it turns me away. And these, I'm just speaking like when I first get into a game, like the things that will make me just put it down and not finish it. And I really become appreciative of music and voice acting. I think is very, very important. I don't think you notice it, but when I look back and I think about a lot of the games I really haven't liked and role-playing games I never got through, I take a look back and I listen to the music and I listen to voice acting. I'm like, oh my god. You don't realize it, but in your subconscious, you're just like, this is so bad. It's just kind of cringy. You can't take it serious. There's no depth to their voices. There's no emotion, and it's like they're just reading. And that happens a lot. And I think when you're doing translations, and sometimes they just want to put it out there instead of putting in the effort into it and paying the extra money for people like Ashley Birch who killed it. So
I think definitely. I'm not sure for personally if it always I'm not sure if that always kills it for me, but it definitely could make it really good for me as well. Like every once in a while, I'll just be doing something, and then I get the battle theme from Final Fantasy 3 in my head, and I'm like, oh my god, Final Fantasy 3 is an amazing game, or 6, I'm like da 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 da, I'm randomly, and I'm like, wow, that kind of proves that it was a great game to me. The music was awesome, and everything about that game was awesome, and I associate it when I think of that music. So I definitely agree.
If you think about the best role-playing games of all time, they all have amazing soundtracks.
Yeah, that's true.
And what goes with that too is kind of, I guess, if some of the main protagonists and characters you play as, if they have very cringy personalities, I feel like I get turned away by the voice acting there. If they're kind of just I don't know, just people I don't want to play as. I really don't even know how to word it. It's just, I can't really think of an example right now to give offhand, but I just want it to I want it to feel real, even though it is fiction.
Titus was kind of cringy.
He was, yeah. I hate saying that.
You're kind of moving into what I was to say. I think characters themselves, especially main characters, can really make or break a game. They can really turn you off. For example, Tales of the Abyss. I think I've mentioned this before, but Tales of the Abyss, the main character is horrible. You're playing, and he's so cringy. You just really can't. You really just can't play it. He gives you a headache, and you're like, oh my god, just kill this guy, Yeah. And it really makes it not fun. I really don't like that.
Titus was pretty bad from 10 too. I'm looking back.
Yeah.
It just goes against what I said earlier when I was saying I really like 10, but man, that was pretty bad too. His voice acting was really bad.
I think now.
10 was great.
I think when we replayed that last week, I noticed some things that I didn't notice the first time I played. Maybe because I'm older now, and when I first played it, it was that sense of wonder, this was supposed to be amazing. And I'm like, oh, this must be amazing. But I noticed, I started noticing flaws and stuff like that started to come through. So I definitely understand that. I also hate when you like a character and then they take him away from you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I stop there.
Or they die. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be spoiler alert, but there are ways around it in the game. But in Tales of Symphonia, my favorite character was Kratos, or however you pronounce it. And he basically disappears in part of the game, and I'm like, oh my god. Now, I've liked the game enough to continue playing, but that was a big downer for me at the time. Why would you get rid of him?
It was really tough for me because they killed off a bunch of the characters. Ugh, it was horrible.
Yeah, in Suikoden they do that too. There's different parts of the game where you're forced to play with certain characters.
Aw.
Yeah, if you don't like them, it's kind of a downer. That game did it. At least the one we played this week did it pretty well, though. If you get bored with a character, they give you a chance to play a different character.
Yeah, you can switch it up too. You have optional. There's some benefits you get from having certain characters in your party, but you can mix it up whenever. And it's good to have a balance of teams depending on what areas you're going in.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, maybe this is a good time. It's about that time to move into it anyway. Why don't we start talking about the game of the week? Which was Max.
Suikoden 3.
Oh. Or
Not me.
Vicky.
Nope. Sorry. No, say it.
It's one of his favorites. I wanted him to say it.
Yeah, Suikoden 3. I pronounce it Suikoden 3.
Alright, I say Suikoden. I just like to say it like that. I don't really know what it is.
I don't know. It sounds so weird. It turns me away.
Well, I asked the guy at the game store, and he said I said it right, but who knows if he knows, but that justified. I felt justified. So, all right. So when we get into it, then. So, Maxwell, you know the most about. So why don't you give us kind of a background of what the game is, and what the setting and what the game is about.
So basically, it's in the Suikoden series. They're known for having 108 stars of destiny, and those are basically playable characters that you have in turn-based combat. Some of them may only be used as support, and eventually in the game you get your own castle. Spoiler alert. And some of the characters, they may run shops in your castle for you, or they may have like mini games, stuff like that. But every single character has a purpose. And that was kind of like the basic concept of the game. Well, in this game, it was the first of the series to give you 3 different perspectives on the same scale of time. So at the start of the game, you take to select the role of the character. Now, you have to play through all 3 of their perspectives and stories, but you get to start with one of your choice. You have a leader, a female leader of the, I believe it was the Zexen Knights, or the Zexen
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and you have the son of the leader of a Grasslands clan, and the third was a mercenary. He was part of, I believe it was Harmonia was the name of the city, and they had like a defense force, and he was a mercenary for them. And you choose one of those, and you play through like their story. And it's interesting because for me personally, I picked Hugo first because I thought I wanted to pick Chris the Knight because she looked the coolest, but I felt like he was the weakest, and the other 2 might have seemed harder. At least that was my thinking when I first played the game. So I played through him, and when you play through his perspective, you kind of think certain characters are going to be like the bad guys, and certain characters are going to be like the good guys, and some events don't make sense in it, and you realize it when you play through the other perspectives. Then they look like the bad guys, and it's really weird because you can like relate it to like real life situations where it's nice to have both sides of the story to really get a full perspective of the game. And then eventually there comes a time after you do all 3 of their stories where they meet up, and I won't tell you what happens because you should all play it. It's an amazing game. But after that, you play the real part of the game after they all meet up, and certain choices you make from there on out affect like what happens. There's a lot of different things that can happen, and it's like a general idea of the game. Really good story, lots of characters to play as, lots of side quests. It's possible you might not even find all the characters, and I thought that was kind of a lot of the fun. There's a character you can get who's almost like he will help you find other characters, kind of like a detective, and you can like set him up to do like inquiries to like where people might be, and then you can go find them. And if you meet certain requirements, they'll join you and your like Federation army that you have in the castle. And it's a really interesting game.
Now, I had never played this game before, so I found it pretty refreshing. Like when you first start out, you can choose the 3 main characters, and there's some blank spots and all that, but you can choose a character. It goes through that character's like basically first prologue cutscene, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start playing this character. No, it like brings you back to that screen, and then you can choose a different character, or you can choose the same one. And you can kind of, I found that very refreshing. Like I wasn't stuck to that one character. So I kind of like I watched all the prologues. I'm like, oh, I think I like this one's premise the best. And then I kind of ran with that. But again, I found it very refreshing that like you weren't stuck with a character you didn't like. I mean, at some point you know you're going to be, but it kind of lets you choose when you want to deal with it.
And it's cool because you're curious to see, because you run into other characters throughout the game, and you're curious to see, oh, what led up to that? What happened after? And then once you play their perspective, you can see, and you'll know. And I thought that was really cool to do that in a game.
I mean, our time was pretty limited, so we only had a week to play, but I chose the mercenary. His name escaped. What was his name again? It's escaped me. Get it? Yes. And I got to the point where again, minor spoilers. I mean, like the lizard men. By the way, I love anything to do with lizard men. But yeah, lizard men, like base, and Chris comes. I'm like, oh shit, there's that other character. I haven't seen you since the prologue. You know what's going on? And I thought it was pretty cool that you have to like basically fight her. And I thought it was pretty cool the way they did that. And again, from his perspective, she looks like almost a bad guy, or a bad, basically a bad guy. I thought it was pretty cool. I haven't really played another game that really did it like that. Where you actually get to play both.
Very well done in that game.
Yeah.
Like, everyone has their own story, or their own side of the story. I played as Chris, and she is the knight captain. I liked her a lot. She was, well, everyone loved her. They all looked up to her in the city. Like, I spent pretty much a good hour or two just talking to townspeople, telling me how great I was, and it was awesome. And like, she didn't think she was so great. What? I what?
I noticed basically the same thing you're talking about, which is interesting because I was playing the other character. But I went to this castle, and then everyone's talking about how great you were.
Yep.
So it's kind of funny that you experienced that and I experienced it, but I didn't actually play that storyline. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. And there's a point later in, I think, the second or third chapter where you meet the main character, Hugo, and you kind of get into like a fight with him because you're trying to like get the Grasslanders to sign a peace treaty with the Zexans.
Yeah,
I forgot the name. Yep. And like something goes wrong and you end up killing someone and you don't mean, and it's really horrible because like Hugo starts to like hate you, and that was crazy.
All right, why don't we get? All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, once you play through that part, weren't you a little curious to like play as Hugo and see what it was like?
Yeah, definitely.
That's like the best part about that game, and it's cool because you don't. Not only do you have the three main perspectives, but like you were saying, like there's like the lizard men. There's a lot of, I don't want to call them subcultures, but a lot of groups with like friends that you can meet throughout the game, and you eventually recruit them to your team. And if you have those characters in your team, you can kind of make assumptions like, oh, these two, I met them together and they were friends, or guy likes this girl. And if you have them on your team, you can do something called combos attacks, which are pretty interesting.
Yeah, why don't we move into the combat? Why don't you give an explanation of the combos? I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's turn-based. It's kind of all turn-based because you have 6 characters, but if you putting them in the front row and the back row really matter based on where, because during their attack phase, they actually move on the map, and you have like runes. It's so in-depth. It would take like a long time to explain everything because where your character's going to move and areas they can affect with like their runes and all the different things, like positioning. It's like turn-based combat, but positioning matters because you also have to be aware if your opponents have some AoE attacks or rune attacks. Are you standing in a group where they can just like wombo combo you and things like that? And it's
I noticed that AoE because I was like, okay, I want to use this AoE move, but my allies are now in there, so I really couldn't use it.
Yeah, you have to. It takes a lot of practice in early game to. I feel like it does a really job, like with the power creep. It doesn't make the game too hard too early, but definitely, it's a difficult game. Like it kicks up the difficulty pretty early in the game. I think a lot of Suikoden games have did that. They make the very beginnings of the games are usually pretty easy, but the difficulty starts to get harder, and it don't stop getting hard. It just keeps getting more and more difficult. I really like that about the game. The combat was cool. But as I was saying, the combo attacks, it takes a while before you get like access to a lot of the really unique ones, but you benefit from having characters who have like, there's no friendship setting in the game, but there are characters that like other characters, and if they're together, they can do a lot of different unique combo attacks where they might like raise the stats of your teammates, lower those of the enemy, like do some sort of magic spell, an AoE attack. There's so many different things that can happen. It's really cool how they do it.
I noticed that a little bit, although I didn't truly completely understand it. But when I paired up certain characters, they would have like a different special move. And I don't know, really, I didn't really understand why, but I noticed that certain characters worked there. It must have been that like invisible friendship status, you know?
Yeah.
But there was more to it than that, too. There was like unbalanced as a status and stuff like that, too. Like your character can become unbalanced and then they can't attack. Like if you're casting and you get hit, you can get interrupted. There was a lot of like small subtleties to it. that made it a little more complex.
Even though you control 6 characters, you're only giving 3 orders, which is why the positioning really mattered.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting and pretty unique. I can't think of another game. Maybe more Suikodens did that, but I can't think of another game that did it quite like that.
Yeah, I don't. Even the later ones, 4 and 5, which I don't recommend. They were bad. Don't play them. 1 through 3. But even the later ones were a little different from that. But it's always Suikoden's always been a very, very neat game.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the biggest. I guess it's kind of over, but it definitely was one of the biggest, real, long, good RPG series.
Yeah.
You know, rivaled Final Fantasy for a time.
I would rather have number 6 than any new Persona, any new Final Fantasy. Just please give me number 6. Make it a new generation system, please.
Take it away from Konami and give it to Square Enix, maybe.
Yeah, Altus or Atlas. I can't believe it's called an Altus.
Anybody else? Literally anybody else.
I'll be happy even if it's just by Konami. I just want number 6. End the series. I want to know how you end it. That's all I want to know.
Alright, well, I had some kind of notes I kind of noticed while I was playing. Well, I thought there were very good minor details in the game overall. Like when your characters are talking, not in a full-fledged cutscene, but just like in game, their mouths move. Now this doesn't sound like a lot, but not many other games did that. I thought that was pretty like a nice little touch that kind of put it more together. Also, I thought the armor in the game was like well done. There were some like characters that had boobs out, but a lot of the characters had more like sensible armor and it wasn't over the top. I thought that was kind of interesting. Alright, so we had some difficulties, so we are going to start again on Skype. So why don't we start with what'd you guys think, like what little touches kind of made the game better? I mentioned that that they had the moving lips in the game, which made the characters kind of more lively. The armor had more detail. Some character models I thought were pretty well done, like the Duck Knight and stuff like that. I thought it kind of like brought the game more to life and made it more interesting. And since there were so many characters, that was kind of needed, I think, to kind of keep it going. So anything else like that you guys thought of that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think with so many characters, I thought it was very, very impressive how each character had their own personalities. It wasn't like, oh, this guy's the tough warrior, or this guy's like the mage, or this girl's like the thief and archer, and all this kind of thing, or the pretty girl. Like, you had like the pretty girl who was like the dancer, you had like the tough warrior, you had all these different personalities of characters, and every single one of them had their purpose. It wasn't like 2 people were just tough guys. Like, every single one of them had a unique purpose, a unique story and personality, and I think that's so impressive. There's games that can't do that with 6 characters. And to do that with 108
or 4,
Yeah. I mean, well, I will say, like, you do have like the Lizard Clan, which all 3 of them are kind of like the tough guys, but as you go later into the game, you learn that like one of them's like the elder. One of them like never wanted to be like a warrior. Spoiler alert, that kind of thing. Like, and then they each have their own unique thing. And then, like I said, if you put them all on the same team, they have like attacks they can do together as like a team. And they have like really high base attack, and it just certain characters like benefit from other things. It's really well done. That was my favorite.
That probably increases the replay value too when you have all these different character combos that you can really focus on. And
yeah, it does. That game does have, even though it's very, very long, I think it has very good replay value because you almost want to after you beat it, maybe not right away, but in general, because you understand all the mechanics of the game now, and now you can, instead of just like getting stressed and grinding, now you can go through it and be like, oh, this is what I need to do, kind of thing.
I thought that the shops had price histories for items. So like if you go to one shop, it tells you where you saw it in the other towns for what price. So you could throw in like an extra 10 minutes just selling items. Like, oh, this one sells for more over here. This one's cheaper over here. I thought that was also like a touch they didn't have to add. There was already so much to this game, but it made it much better.
Yeah, the trading. That's that's something that's always been around the Suikoden series.
okay.
Was the trade? It's almost like a mini stock market in a way. Like if you know that like pearls are really, they're really expensive because none of the monsters near that city drop pearls. So all of a sudden you go to like on the other side of the continent, kill a bunch of monsters that drop pearls, bring them over to this town where they pay really high. And then while you're at that town, oh, you guys grow rice here, so you can buy a bunch of rice and then sell it to the place where they don't have fertile ground to grow rice. And it was cool, just like a thing you could do on the side, almost like optional side quests for money and things like that.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of little details that really well done. Did anything stick out to you, Vicky, or did we kind of cover it all?
You guys stole all of it. I liked all the
Just as planned.
personalities for like everyone. They were all so great. Like I eventually got to play as Thomas, and I loved like the butler character and like his little knight. He had like one knight in his castle, and I thought that was hilarious because he was like such a little firecracker.
And he's a really important character too, even though he's not a main protagonist. He's very, very important to the story.
Yeah, I got the impression that a lot of not main characters were, in a way, very important.
Yeah,
They all kind of, you can kind of get like hints that they're gonna kind of do more later and all that stuff.
That's what made the game so good. And I'm also biased because I've told you guys, you know me for knowing the story and the character development, and this is the series that they got it right.
All right, now since we have to keep objective, were there some things in the game that you didn't like?
There's one thing I didn't like, and it's the thing that everyone disliked, and that was the music.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that the battle music, particularly, was not good. It just wasn't great.
I didn't even think about it. I mean, usually I
Exactly.
notice these things, but it was just like I didn't like the camera angles.
Yeah, you really you can't change them. They're set,
Nope.
and it's kind of weird for a 3D game.
Yeah.
Now, did that ruin the game? No, but
No,
it was
but,
kind
like,
of a.
It was a
annoying.
hindrance.
It's annoying when you're kind of like trying to go up and down ramps and you keep catching the edges and you can't see that the edge is there because you can't change the angle. That's what
Yep.
kind of got to me, but
I think that's one of those things. It's unfortunate, but that's never going to like ruin a game.
it's just like a kind of a little annoying.
Yeah. It's like when there's like this beautiful, well-designed game, and then there's like a picket fence, and you just can't cross it. And there's just like this really awkward animation of you running straight while standing next to a picket fence. And there's always like those little petty things that I think every game kind of has.
Now, this is another thing. I think it can definitely be forgiven considering the kind of the scale of the game, but we mentioned before that characters, when you combine them, they have special moves. Like if you pair up these two characters, they get a different move that only works if you have those two characters. But that move is called like Mercenary B. You know, it's not like, Super Slash or something like that. It's Mercenary B. I just thought that was a little uninspired. It could have been an easy fix, but considering how many characters there are and how many combos there are and how many different moves there probably are, it's not a big deal. But
They probably had it like named something else in Japan. Like maybe it was.
maybe it's a localization
Yeah.
shortcut or something. That could definitely be the case. I can't confirm that, but
No.
Yeah, well, there's definitely like there's one that's a combination. It's called like Pretty Boy Attack, and it's got
No way.
Pretty Knight Attack, yeah, and it's got like
yeah, there were some. But I noticed some other ones were like, again, Mercenary B. Like what? That sounds like a character. It didn't sound like a move, you know. I'm just being kind of nitpicky here, but
Well, I mean, later in the game you'll understand what Mercenary B is, and it's.
Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't get that far then.
I just made that up, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you got me. You could have kept it going.
I could have kept going with it. Yeah.
All right. Another thing I noticed is I mentioned before that fight where I was ghetto, and I fought against Chris, and I didn't think I was underleveled, right? And I went into the battle, and Chris uses this ice move that basically just one-shots the whole party. And I just like had to kind of get lucky. I had to be like, oh, well, this time she didn't do it, and I won. But the two times before that, she just opens with it, and it's just over. There's just nothing I can do. And again, I didn't feel underleveled. I feel like I just got unlucky, and it's just an AoE move that did 75% of every character's HP.
Yeah, there's some fights in the game that happen too that you can win or lose, and different things happen if you win or lose them. And they're also known. I don't know how much you guys played, but there's actually 4 different battle systems in the game.
Oh, I don't know this.
I saw the tactics. I mean, I got up to the tactics one, which is like you don't really get to select who you're attacking. You just kind of attack.
Yeah, it's like a 7. The way I describe it, a 7-layered rock paper scissors.
Oh boy.
Yeah, 7 layers of rock paper scissors with some special abilities, and there's some. Basically, if there's certain characters you've recruited, you'll get like more benefits in these like large upscale battles because you can kind of like predict their next move and counter it. And if you have like multiple people that can predict, you can do it multiple times, and a lot of different strategic abilities you can do in that. And then the other 2 battle systems, there's the mini game battle system, which is kind of interesting and in depth. I won't get into that because that's not too important. But the other important was there's one-on-one duels. And that's basically rock, paper, scissors. You have heavy attack, regular attack, and defend. And they'll give out a quote. The enemy will give out a quote, and you'll basically have to pick. If you think, you kind of predict how they're going to do. If they're going to do a heavy attack, you would pick defend. If they're going to pick attack, you would pick heavy attack. And if they're going to pick defend, you would just do a regular attack. And that's like how to counter them. You have to kind of guess what they're going to do based on what they say.
It sounds interesting. I don't know if I like that, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a big part of the game. It was just cool because you would have to, if you know that battle's coming up, you would like grind that one character to try to, because it's, like I said, there's some you can win. You don't have to win or lose them. Some of them. Some of them are required to win or it's game over, but then some of them you can win or lose and it progresses. And it's really interesting. That's why saving is so important. It's one of those games you have to save often.
Yeah, it's kind of died off with autosave, but back in the day, saving was everything.
Yeah,
You know.
it definitely is because there's certain characters can die off, and if you want the true ending, you have to have all 108 characters alive, or at least the one that the games allow you to be alive. Spoiler alert.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you may or may not be able to keep them all alive. But that was a trending thing in Suikoden, was the Stars of Destiny. But the music, back to get on, like, I don't want to praise it when we're like trying to be honest with the game. The music really was like its downfall. I mean, it could have been a perfect game if they just had a better soundtrack and put more effort into the music, but that was, for me, that was the con for me.
Yeah, I'd say that's I'm gonna have to agree. That's definitely the biggest con. Everything else I said was kind of nitpicky, but the music was definitely I thought an obvious issue. But again, I could definitely forgive it considering the rest of the game was so good and interesting and fun that it's not a big deal. I'll just put on some other music while I'm playing. But
yeah, I do think, I will say though, some town music, different towns had good soundtracks, but for the battle and
combat music was just not.
Yeah, and
great.
traveling was very, very uninspiring. But I do think there was a lot of different towns that had cool little beats to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've more or less covered everything. I think we'll wrap it up here. So yeah. All right. So from now on, we're gonna mix things up a little bit. We're gonna change it around. After playing this week, I think we kind of realized that a week is not enough to truly give you guys honest opinions on these RPGs. So we're going to change it from a game of the week to a game of the month. And we're going to start out with our first game in the series. We're going to do Fire Emblem and the Sacred Stones for the Game Boy Advance. Should have some gameplay footage with this one too. Should be easy to do. So look forward to that. Other than that, please check out JustRPG.com for tons of RPG game reviews, news articles, editorials. Follow us on Twitter at JustRPG for updates. Feel free to message us if you have topics for other podcasts, any good ideas. Also, make sure to follow us on other social media sites such as Pinterest, Tumblr, and Facebook. And all those links will be in the description below. All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Later.
All right.